Um, yep. Wait for it. Contingency agreements. We've talked. It was weird. When it rains, it pours. I've probably had 4 different issues over the last like 3 weeks with contingency agreements. And I've had a few people reach out, and it's just like I've never done one. And you can, the last 4 years, 5 years, you can be in the industry for 3 or 4 years and not have done one over the last several years. You haven't?
That was me, Todd.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So now I was literally talking. So I had a question, called an attorney, and we kind of had that conversation. Like, the market has shifted now where buyers aren't just giving everything up. So if they have a house to sell, you're on their timeline now a little bit, at least more so than we were even 2 years ago or a year ago. So contingencies will probably be more common coming up as we see them. Certain price points and upgrading price points in the 3s, 4s, 500s. You might have a 150, 200, $300,000 house to sell before they can move up. So I think we're going to be seeing them more and more. So I want to kind of run through them because there's a couple things even I didn't kind of realize how these are written. There's some gaps in coverage and protection from buyers and sellers in here. And so I want to make sure agents know how to use them in practice and how to make sure they don't get kind of caught. Because I feel like we kind of got caught a little bit with one recently. So because we didn't really know how it worked. So right off the bat, I want to make sure everyone knows what a contingency is. So there was a lot pre-COVID, again, back when we were in a more normal market, people would try to keep, like if you have a finance contingency, they would try to keep it active on the market. They thought the seller thought they were being slick by saying, well, until you remove your finance contingency and your inspection contingency, I can keep it active on the market. That is an MLS violation. Contingency is defined only when the buyer has to sell their previous house. Every other contingency is not a contingency by definition to the MLS, so it has to be moved pending. So if someone says you have a finance contingency, I can keep looking for buyers, they are wrong. They have to move it to pending, just so you know. But we were seeing a lot of that happen as the market was heating up, but before it went, hyperdrive. So contingency, defined by the MLS, is only when a buyer has a house to sell. So important to understand that. All other standard contingencies like title, inspections, and finance are built into the contract, and they all have that. You still have to move it pending, and you can't show the house and that kind of stuff.
But you're saying the last part, when the buyer's property is not currently under contract.
Yeah.
So when it's under contract, it's not contingent?
So that's where there's a lot of, so this is an MLS, this is the MLS code and rules, which has to line up with OREC documents, and they don't. And even OREC documents don't line up with each other, and I'll show you how, when I was talking to the attorney, what they showed me. So yes, technically, if they have it under contract, and I'll talk about this in a minute, all timelines should move forward, all financing timelines, all inspection timelines. It's essentially as if there's not a contingency, but you still have the out of getting out of the contract if your house doesn't sell. Because if you have a house to sell and you don't use a contingency and your house doesn't sell, it's debatable whether or not you have the legal right to get out of that contract or not. We go back and forth on that, so we'll talk about that. But contingency explicitly means have a house to sell. 2 types of documents we're going to be talking about, and 2 processes. First one is who's never done a contingency agreement or contract? So you will. Okay. So most have. Okay. Your first one was this summer. Were you on the sell side or the buy side?
Me?
Yeah.
The buy side.
You're a buyer. Okay. So as an agent, especially in this market, you might get this a lot. Like, what's the time? I have a house to sell. What's the timing like? When should I list my house? How much should we list it? Should we start shopping now, or should we put my house on the market? All these timing questions, and I'll answer that real quick because I think there's a strategic process for that. Look at their house. When you're listing a house, comp it. You want to figure out how many days on market on average they have. Where are we going to price it based on the comps? And are we going to be at the average days on market, below the average days on market, above? And so if I'm looking and I see, okay, your house that we're selling I'm predicting will sell on the market for 60 days, then let's probably not start shopping just yet. Let's throw it on the market and see what kind of activity we're getting. If I look and see everything sells in 2 weeks in your neighborhood, well, let's start shopping, and then let's assume we're going to price our home correctly and our home is in correct condition and it's going to sell quickly. So it's really it's a numbers answer. The answer to that question is let's look at the numbers and find out what we can expect price and what we can expect time-wise, and that's how you start shopping. But some people might put an offer on the house. Two of our agents right now, Jerica has a listing and Sydney wrote a contingent offer on it, and they haven't even listed it yet. So they got it under contract, and Sydney's listing it today or yesterday. So we'll be seeing a lot more of that now because buyers don't have to be near as aggressive. So we'll see a lot more buyers making offers and they don't even have their house on the market yet. So there's two types of contingencies. There is it's called a condition of sale. So there is a sale of buyer's property condition, parentheses, not under contract, and that means the home I am selling is not under contract. And then there's a sale of buyer's property condition, presently under contract. That means the home I'm selling does have an accepted offer on it. So they both, and whenever you get a copy of this, there's links to take you to the document. So when talking with the seller, again, if you've never accepted a contingency offer, or if you've, as a listing agent, some sellers not understanding what it is like, no, I don't want to screw with the contingency. Tell them to call me whenever they sell their house. And I think that's a silly response. I don't understand why something with the universe, but as soon as one person wants something, other people want something. And so it's a real thing. I don't understand it. Yeah, come on in. Receiving and accepting a contingency, one, gives them a little sense of accomplishment, right? We sold our house, we got a contract, we got someone who wants it. That buyer is now vested in our house, and so they're going to be more aggressive with selling their home, hopefully. But also, once you put no one really ever sees this, but once you receive a contingency, almost always, within a few weeks, you're receiving more activity or receiving another offer. I don't understand why. There's no science behind it. And then whenever you write a contingency, you'll see that a lot of time, half the time maybe you get your contingency kicked out because other buyers are coming along as well. So there is a ton of benefit to accepting it. And what you have to explain to your sellers, if you receive a presently not under contract offer, negotiate it, make it favorable terms. You don't have to be real giving because we can keep it on the market, get favorable terms, and then we get to continue to market the home. So if another buyer comes in and makes us a more acceptable offer that's not contingent, then we can accept that and move forward. But there's no reason not to accept a contingency. You got a buyer who wants to buy your house. Maybe it takes them an extra 2-3 weeks to buy it, 4 weeks to buy it, but we might sit 4 more weeks on the market and not get another offer. So you work what's in front of you. That's why I always tell all my clients, good offer, bad offer, work what's in front of you. And so always, if you have sellers that are like, I don't want to screw with that, tell them to call me when it's sold. Then just say, I would advise we accept it. When people see that we've accepted, it creates more scarcity and urgency around the property, and it's going to help you sell. Always accept.
So do you tell them that if they get an offer that's $10,000 better than the one that they are currently under contract with, but that other person is able to remove their contingency?
Yeah.
That
yes, they have to go with it. Yeah. So yes, it's important to also explain how the kick-out clause works, and I was going to go through that in the kick-out clause process. But essentially, to kind of jump ahead a little bit, if we receive a better offer, perfect example, Lynn got one where a contingency offer and then a cash offer came in, more desirable. I think it's a little bit more money, right? Or is it a little bit more money? So it's more desirable. And the cash offer almost got beat out because the person almost removed their condition in time. So yeah, even if you had a better, more acceptable offer, if they can remove their contingency on time, you've already pre-agreed to that. I'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to confuse and get too ahead. So basically on this slide, explaining to the seller, it's always a good idea. No reason not to accept a contingency offer because you're doing the exact same thing. You're marketing the home. But now you've got someone on the hook who's working really hard to buy it. Does that make sense? Well, it's silly not to accept. And if a seller doesn't know that we get to keep our house on the market, keep showing it, keep doing open houses, keep receiving offers, they might tell you not to do it. So that's where you have to explain it to them. All right, the not under contract document. So I kind of did it in a little bit of a timeline sequence. So the first document is the not under contract document. Jeff, can you read that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how to read.
Yeah. Yeah. Read line B for me here. So I'm going to read through it a little bit for you. I highlighted a couple of the main functions. So this is presently not under contract. So this is me writing an offer on a house and my home is not under contract yet, but I still have to sell it for finance purposes. So once it's accepted, it asks for the status of the buyer's property. So there's two options here. Status A is the buyer's property is already listed on the MLS or listed with a real estate brokerage firm. And option two is the buyer's property will be listed within 2 days. And so I've seen people edit this and say 7 days, everything's editable, right? But it defaults to 2 days. So if you're writing an offer, you have 2 days, and it's not already on the market. You have 2 days to put your house on the market. Has to be listed with a real estate agent as well, or it needs to be modified to say I'm FSBOing it. But I've been a listing agent and received an offer from someone, and they wanted to FSBO their home, and we said no, or we negotiated price because I don't know when you'll ever sell that thing. But they had a realtor write the offer, but they were going to FSBO it. So the realtor, we ended up helping that realtor get that listing. Yeah, all right, happens a lot.
I was just gonna say, for those that when you're doing a buyer's agency, amend this. You're not gonna be able to get that house on the market.
Unless it's already ready, right? And you just need to,
That's about what, 1
yeah,
to 10?
yeah, maybe, yeah. So what do you normally? I like two because I want to.
Oh, I totally, but I got scheduled photography.
Yeah.
You know, and then we gotta make it, so I have 4, and then the most important thing is the kick out. I need more than 24 hours, I need 72.
Yep, always do that too.
No, not for the seller.
Not if you're the listing agent. Yeah,
No.
yeah, right. Yeah,
24 hours?
yeah.
No.
So there's two sides to this, right? Are you the receiving agent or are you the offering agent? So we'll talk about that too. So yeah, so all this, there's default timelines, but you can edit all these timelines. And all you do is in .lib, add a text box and cover up where it says 2 and type 4 into it. Simple as that.
Which, one thing I did, knowing that my buyer was going to list, we took pictures before we even started looking.
Okay, yeah.
And so when
Yeah.
we found something, you already had your pictures. And
Yeah.
then you just then
N-
did kind of.
Not a bad idea because some people might take a week to get their house all cleaned up and all. So if you can have that conversation and you've got proactive buyers,
Yeah.
then yeah, definitely push them to get it ready, get it. Or it's like, hey, right now over the next month, trees are going to start dying, bushes are going to start dying. If I know we're going to list in November, let's get some photos now. Pool's open, we haven't closed the pool yet. So if there's a little bit of foresight, there's nothing worse than seeing a listing in like April and the photos have snow on the ground. It's like, oh, you've been on here for a while. And so you want it to look attractive, not like, that's why I hate, where was it? I think I was talking with Henry. We listed he just recently listed like a $900,000 house, beautiful home. They lived there for 7 years. They did all this stuff. And the day we scheduled photos, it's a thunderstorm. And so he went out there and the photos looked like hell. It was cloudy and it was just like no, we have to come back out and redo these. You waited 7 years to sell a house and get the most money you can and happen to be on a thunderstorm. So let's go out and do it right. Photos are huge. You can't express. Don't just take a bad photo shoot. Do it right. You'll sell way faster. Anyway, all this is editable. Good idea with kind of getting ahead of that. So section 2 is, are you already listed? If I'm writing the offer, I need to tell the seller I'm already listed, or am I going to list it within 24, 48, 36, how many hours? Continuation of property on market. So this is what makes it okay for a seller to accept this. Seller's property shall remain on the market. Seller may continue to show and offer seller's property for sale until termination condition is removed. So we have free reign to continue to market and sell the house. Going on to section 4, the seller's demand to remove condition. So when we receive an acceptable offer that is not contingent, we cannot kick out one contingent offer for another contingent offer. There are other people, there's discussion too, if presently under contract, if you can kick a not under contract offer out for a presently under contract offer. And it's not clear. I would say that you can, but it is not clear. So you might have a little bit of a scuffle.
Say can or can't?
I think that you can,
Okay.
but it does not expressly state that. It uses the two different terms. It does not expressly state. Are you saying Pam?
Can.
Can,
D in there.
yes you can.
And to simplify for the listing agents, because I do a lot of buyer's agency when you're
I
doing
mumble that much?
contingency, you get that new seller's peace of mind that you can work up these backups and your contract period is gonna expire before that contingency is satisfied and you can just release it.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Alright, so let's say that you and me, I'm the buyer, you're the listing agent. I sign a contingency contract with you, and we have a 45-day contract, okay? We're 3 weeks in, house is listed, it's not under, I haven't sold it, okay? So our contingency's still going. You either don't get a better offer that you wanna accept, or you start getting, tired of this contingency. All you have to do is write out your initial contract period.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, it expires. Yeah.
So
yeah.
let's say you
Yep.
let's say you get a better contract and you're locked in now, okay? You still have your TRR period.
Mhm.
You can say, I'm not agreeing to anything, and you can have
Yeah.
your backup in your back pocket.
Yeah. It puts it. So we've done that where it's like, hey, we're not going to be very cooperative.
Yeah.
But yes, so that option. So yeah, kind of what you're referring to back here is, in the event the seller does not deliver a demand, the contact and the contract expires, it'll automatically terminate. So yeah, if the timelines just expire, the contract's just null, and buyer gets earnest money back, or you can extend it. So section 4 is what gives you permission to continue to market the home as a seller. Now the highlighted section down here, this is where we talk about they redid this in January. I think the old one maybe 2 years ago or maybe even last year actually had a kick out. It said kick out clause. It's not in there now, but this is the kick out clause that I highlighted. So a kick out clause means if I receive another offer, I can kick your offer out, and I have to give you X hours to remove your contingency. So I can't just accept something. I have to give you a notice, and I get X hours to remove it myself.
Does the seller have to provide any information regarding that they have another offer?
No.
What prevents the seller from just saying, yeah, we have another cash offer, and start a time period for nothing?
What prevents that is they might be left with no offers. I guess you could.
You can ask for blacked out info.
You can what?
Like if
Redacted.
redacted, you can see and execute the contract with the purchase price, but I don't know if it's legally required. I've had.
I don't think you can. I don't think they can.
It does not say it in there, 'cause
You do not have to offer it.
Yeah.
Now, when you remove, we'll talk about the removal document does require you give them a copy of the contract of the one you're selling. But here, the seller does not have to give them any proof that they're kicking you out. Hello. We're just talking about you.
Opportunity for shady stuff.
Yeah, the whole contract does. I mean, honestly, the whole industry creates a lot of gray area and opportunity. So section 4 is what gives you permission to continue to market the home, and is where the kick out clause is. So what it says is, buyer shall have until the date and time specified on the demand from seller to remove condition, parentheses, no less than 24 hours. So that's your kick out clause. If you don't put anything else, it defaults to 24 hours within the time in which to remove their condition. So when I'm writing an offer, I like to put 48. Again, if you don't have something in place for 24, 48 is probably not going to help you either, right? And it also, I feel like we learned this a while back too. I didn't realize this. Lynn's been the main reason for this course. She's had like five contingencies in the last couple months. This is new this year on the contract. If the kickout clause ends on a Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday, the kickout clause extends to the next day. That didn't used to be the case. You should just be calendar days. You should just be 24 hours. So now, if you have a kickout clause and it ends on Sunday, you get until Monday, so that you can seek financing, sell the house, whatever it might be. But because you got caught, you initiated it, and it expired on a Sunday, I think, or a holiday or something, and had to get an extra day. So so everyone understand the kickout clause? Any questions around it? We'll talk about the termination and the removal here in a second. But this is where, if you're a buyer agent, you want this number to be bigger. If you're a listing agent, you want this number to be smaller.
Brett, I had one time I had a listing agent say, well, you didn't notify me. And it doesn't really say how it's notified, but I sent it in a text and they're like, well, you had to send it in.
Yeah, the new one specifies the document. Buyer shall, until the end of the time period specified in demand from seller to remove condition. So those, you can't see it, but the words are capitalized. It's referring to a document. So I don't remember the old one. I don't know if I did in the old one. This one, you have to use a specific document that notifies them. It's a demand letter, yeah. So going forward, yeah, you do have to issue a demand letter.
Well, and there's two. There's the seller's demand for condition
And then a
removal,
buyer's
and then
removal.
the buyer's removal
Yeah.
of condition.
Yep, we're gonna go over both of those. Just sit tight. I think. Oh, I don't have them on here, but I'll pull them up. So seller's demand to remove. So that's what allows you to continue to market it. That's what allows you to kick out clause. That's where the kick out clause is. Because again, the old one said kick out clause. It's not in there anymore. Now you just have to find it in the middle of this paragraph. Section 5 is the removal of termination condition. So to remove the termination condition, buyer shall either have the buyer's property under contract, and this is where it's important, with no conditions other than inspection, title, and mortgage. So you cannot have, and this is where, so again, this is where I was talking to Jeff Long. This is where the two documents they contradict each other. And this is where we had our issue. Lynn's buyer sent a removal of condition because they sold their house. Same time that seller got another offer. I'm assuming it was better or as good or whatever. But because ours had to sell our house condition, even though it was under contract, they didn't have to accept it. Because this says no conditions other than inspection, title, and financing. Does that make sense? So to go from a not under contract to a presently under contract, they don't have to accept you, if that makes sense.
Is the exception to that if like the buyer, on that removal of condition form checked, through lender or financing
Yes.
agency that
Yep.
they no longer are required to sell?
Correct.
Buy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because they've removed the condition.
Okay.
Because the removal and then the presently under still carries a condition to sale.
Right.
To
It's still
sell.
contingency.
Yeah. Because normally what you would do is send a removal and the presently under.
Right.
Saying I'm removing my contract, I'm removing it because I now have an offer and I'm attaching the offer with it. So I'm removing it, I'm changing it from a not under contract to a presently. And so they don't have to accept that because it still has it.
But see, this is.
Does that make
this
sense?
is where I-
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
where I totally disagree, because you're the seller, and Evan's gonna buy your house, and he has his house to sell. And you accept his offer knowing he has a house to sell.
Mm-hmm.
He gets it under contract, you should be stuck, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that you, with the pool house, said no is because his house is under contract, but her house was under contract. It was a double contingency.
It was
That's
three,
when she
wasn't it?
all of a sudden said, oh,
Yeah.
I don't wanna sell it to you.
They're all
And
under
then, like, what the
contract.
hell?
Yeah, they're all
But-
under contract, but they're all
But if
contingent.
the seller knew that this person's contingent, I don't think they have the right to back out, because then now he's done inspections and appraisal, and all of a sudden he's like, boop, I went out.
So that's where, again, that's
Doesn't
where
make sense to me.
that's where the documents don't
Yeah.
say the same thing. So I'll have to, let me see. Because my conversation, this is where I type my notes out. So if you go under contract and it's already under contract, then you cannot accept other contingencies. But if you go straight to presently under contract, yeah. So that's where. Hold on, I'll get back to it. I'm jumping around a little bit. But this is where there's a lot of confusing. So moving from not under contract to presently under contract, it's not. The seller may not accept it, which means they can continue to market it because you can't really remove this condition because it's still under contract or it's still contingent on a sale. So the problem we ran into, or the logic that was being used, is the seller can go all the way up to closing and not accept your removal and kick you out at any time.
The only question I have is like, this is during, so they've signed your not presently under contract that gives you the 24-hour kick-out
Mhm.
clause. Why wouldn't you get that 24 hours in the transition from not presently under contract to under? Why is there an escape clause right there in that window?
So they did. They gave us. They initiated the kick out, right?
Yeah, like, we got an offer
Yeah.
on their house and accepted it, so now my buyer has to sell his house, right? I'm like, they
Yeah.
can't get out for just no reason. And then at the same time, we got the offer on their house, that pool house is what I call it, the first one, they got another offer. So when we did the removal, they said, wait a minute, we don't wanna, they hadn't signed the removal yet.
Gotcha.
If the removal was signed, I think they can't get out, but because these happened at the same So then they said, you have to get your own financing or we're walking.
Yeah.
Well, my people have their house for sale, so my buyer was distraught because now she's like, I can't back out of my
sold
house.
her house.
Now I'm
Yeah.
homeless
That's
because I don't get the house that I want.
I think
Isn't
it,
That's
yeah.
It's awful. That's
If-
why I'm like, how do I protect my person?
If they had signed the presently under,
And the only
then
reason
they
did
couldn't
is 'cause
go
they got
back.
an offer the same time we got an offer.
Yeah.
We got offered under
It-
contract,
yeah.
they got another offer.
So if they do sign the presently under, then they have to move it pending. They can't market it.
Right.
They can't
Right.
accept.
It's the
But it would
notice.
happen at the time that they were trying to get them to do that, and that's when they said no. We're gonna look at this other offer.
I have a question on that, cause you're saying that we have,
That's what it's selling.
That's what triggered it, but it doesn't matter if it's double or not. That's just what made them question it.
Contingency she was worried about. She
It's
said,
the-
now I have to
it's
worry about
buyers,
two people.
buyers.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's stuff that we don't have control
Yeah,
over.
right,
Yeah.
Down the line.
Yeah.
yeah,
So what we did is we went to the lender and said, can we do a bridge loan? Yes. I said, we don't wanna do a bridge loan, but just give us a piece of paper that said we can. So then she gave us a piece of paper that said we can, we stuck with the VA loan, which now is in furlough, that's a whole other story. But, we got the paper that said that he could buy it without selling his, even though we
They're
weren't
not
gonna do
gonna
that
use
unless
it.
we absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully,
that's
because
how-
hopefully it
Hopefully,
closes.
right, they're not gonna use it, but they had to,
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah.
satisfy
There's a
that.
lot of tears.
Yeah.
I
It was
believe it.
not
I
good.
believe
It was very
Yeah,
stressful.
changing
So,
contingencies are awful.
Sydney, yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
question on that, so, and I'm sorry, I came 30 minutes late, I drove here from Logan County. My question is, we submit a buyer not presently under contract, contingency.
Hmm.
My buyer gets their house under contract. And you're saying to submit a buyer presently under contract form instead of the removal of
Both.
condition? So both.
Together.
Together, okay,
Because that's why I was talking to Jeff Long, and he's like, I don't think you need to do it presently under. Just submit a removal.
right.
But then I
that's
think
what
that
thought.
that removes the protection of having to sell the house.
Yeah.
And then what we go back and forth is, well, if it all, at the end of the day, it all comes down to financing. So because we talked about this years ago, don't, like when things were heating up in COVID, don't submit a contingency offer. Just submit an offer. And your financing falls through because you don't sell your house, you get out of the contract. Because no one was accepting contingency offers.
Well, and sellers
and-
didn't care because
and-
there was 18 million people lined up behind
Right,
that buyer.
right.
So,
But the problem is, my opinion, and Jeff said he was going to ponder on it. If your approval letter is conditioned on selling your house, but you don't do the condition in the contract, in my opinion, you're foregoing that. I don't think you just get to back out later. It's just like you don't have a job, but then still submitting a. It's like, oh, I didn't have a job. I thought I'd get one by closing day, and I didn't get one. I think you're knowingly going into the contract with a stipulation that you can't fulfill. Does that make sense?
yeah, but on the buyers, and sorry, I'm poking holes in your logic.
Please.
On the buyer's removal of condition notification, it says like if, they're not getting a different form of financing. It says a copy of contract to close the sale of buyer's property on or before closing date. In this contract, subject to no conditions other than inspection, title, survey, or financing, or a sales agreement subject to successful closing of undersigned buyer's property currently under contract. So I feel like that successful closing kind of covers that where you don't need a buyer's presently under contract form. Cause it states right there that they have
Are you looking
to
at-
have a
are you looking at
successful
B?
closing. A. Sorry y'all, this is where my old TC
Yeah.
bullets pop out,
It's good
so.
stuff.
No.
It's good stuff.
No condition.
Gotta have the backboard figured out.
Copy of the contract.
Look at that calendar, it's
That's not even a bad week.
He's like,
I'll find, there's a good one. Stresses me
Why
out.
do you use those colors? They're so harsh and it makes it extra scary.
Those are the nicest ones.
Those are the
The black ones are my personal. If that makes you feel better.
And we called you on your personal.
Yeah, he did. I was at the lake.
You were blacked
I
out.
was at the lake. I don't even remember that call.
But he sent us on our way.
Yeah, just send it to me to sign. Okay, hold on. Copy of the contract. On or foreclosing this contract, subject to no conditions.
Oh, that's me, I'm sorry.
Or a sales agreement subject to successful closing. Yeah, that's referring to the presently under, the sales agreement.
Right, so I was
So I
just
think you'd have to
wondering
submit
if you needed both, if it
or.
already states right there, the sales agreement is subject to the successful closing of the buyer's property. Cause that protects them still in that instance, because it states successful closing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, let me open this back up real quick.
Sorry.
No, and that's where, again, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. There's no,
I mean, the only real difference between like that form and the presently under contract form is that it puts a timeline on it.
the presently under contract tells you to start timelines.
Right, it
That's
states that
that's why.
their property has to close on or before X date.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's really the only difference. I'm gonna email Rec Contracts because this
So
annoys the crap out of me.
Jeff, so that's what I was talking to Jeff Long, and he says they contradict each other a lot, and he's
Yeah.
reached out, and there's
Okay.
each year there's different people writing different contracts, and
Alright.
so they've been written over 2 decades with different people writing them each time. So,
Yeah.
but I just like it because contract is expressly conditioned on the closing the sale of the buyer's property,
Yeah.
and it expressly states it.
And it also specifies contract becomes null and void and buyer gets back earnest money.
Yep,
So, okay,
expressly
I
it
see what
states it.
you're
Yep.
saying.
So
Yeah.
I think it adds a layer of just expressly stating that this thing is still contingent upon the sale of the home.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know. I'd have to read through each thing and see. But if you don't use the presently under contract,
Does it say that the presently under contract would void the not under contract one? Would
the removal of condition voids that one.
that one?
So that you provide 2 documents: the removal of condition and the presently under. So if you don't, I don't know what on here says they have to move it pending and not accept. Oh, the definition of contingency is what tells them that. So since this satisfies the definition of, or no longer complies with the definition of contingency, which means they have a contract in their home, they have to move it pending.
Right.
So that's what requires it to move it pending is MLS rules.
Right.
So that's where, again, this is what I was just saying. I was talking to someone about this yesterday at training. There's no right or wrong you can't just, when agents have disputes, they want to call brokers or call attorneys and say, tell me who's right and who's wrong. And it's not that easy. Everything in a contract, they do really good job making these things boilerplate to try to encompass everything they can, but every contract is open to interpretation. Every single contract. It's open to interpretation, it's open to intentions. If something's not covered in here, it goes to state law, case law. We don't know. So for someone to say you have to do this or you have to do that, that's why I get so upset with agents who just know-it-all agents. Again, we're trying to do the same thing here. Let's get on the same page and don't talk to me like I'm an idiot. Because anyone who tells you they know something for certain is selling you something. So we don't know. We have to read through this. I haven't memorized every document in the contract formula or in the contract bank, but I've read through them enough. I understand the intent of every document. And so sometimes you have to read through it. And that's when we were looking at it, the other broker was telling us we don't have to accept it because it's still contingent upon sale. I was like, that's not right. In practice, that's not how it's treated. But I went back and read it, and I'm like, I can't point to anything that says she's wrong. And so then it goes back to intention, it goes back to interpretation, it goes back to case law, it goes back to whatever. So understanding where the gaps are in this is what's going to create more certainty for you and your clients. So the practice I like to use is when we receive a contract to send the removal of condition and the presently under contract. And I think that just creates more clear expectations of what we still need to sell. And I think it's an extra document. Traditionally, I like less documents over more documents. But in this instance, I think it just makes it clear for everyone what our intentions are.
And that's
Also
regardless
just-
if,
No, go ahead.
Just get everybody into a squared off place and just say, we're gonna dig this one out.
Yeah, we're going to fight and see who's right.
This one standing is right.
Wins the house.
We came close to that.
Yeah.
and is that regardless if it's like a double
Yeah, even if it's like presently under contract, presently under contract, presently. I've seen 4 chains deep of, and one, who was it? I think it was Brittany. Someone had one, and the last one was like selling a house in Seattle to come
That's
here.
us.
Was that you guys? Yeah,
Yeah.
6.
And I'm
Yeah,
number 6.
you guys aren't allowed to do any more
No,
contracts.
no, I'm tired.
Yeah, it was like someone in Seattle, and then buy, and then ours. It's like you're holding your breath for freaking 6 weeks until everyone gets their stuff. So, but you see why a seller would not want that. It creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty. So, and you're dependent on someone else's ability to negotiate TRRs, someone else's inspector, someone else's appraiser.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, like
It's all on somebody else.
yeah, it has nothing to do with you. If that other agent is terrible at negotiating, or if that inspector is brutal or whatever, you suffer for it. So I understand why you wouldn't want it.
Is this a good time when you would talk to your seller and say, hey, you know, the best price isn't always the best price. Sometimes the terms is more favorable than
Yeah.
price alone, you know, something that's a little bit
Yeah.
more of a sure deal.
Yeah, if you've got yes, always. I mean, we had these conversations with during COVID all the time, right? You have a FHA offer, it's 40 grand above list, or you have a cash offer at list. It's like 40 grand's cool, but you're never going to get that money. It's not going to appraise.
No.
They're going to beat you to hell, and it's just like this might be a better offer. It seems counterintuitive, but this one won't go through. It's just not going to work. So yeah, you always want to navigate them, coach them, navigate them through that.
Okay, so here's the problem. If you're the person in the middle, like, you know, my person has present, not under contract, puts a contract on this house, they put their house on the market, they get an offer, they accept it, and now this seller says, I don't accept because you have a double contingency. Now my seller sold the house.
Yeah.
And what do? How do you protect?
So they
Your
could
buyer, so-
that end seller could reject your
Yeah.
could reject
And
your
now this
removal.
person has their house under contract and they can't back out.
Yeah. So and sellers can't just back out,
No.
unfortunately. So you would just again, if there hadn't been another offer come in at the exact day that you were changing,
Would it never
wouldn't have been a problem. But you happen to receive another offer the same day, and they didn't want to screw with it. And that's when they pointed out the fact that you really can't remove your offer. You really can't comply with this document because it's still contingent upon the house,
Okay,
sale of
but
the
if
house.
you're the person selling this house because your person's buying this house, how do you protect this person? Because they have to run and go get a buyer, and as soon as they get a buyer, this seller all of a sudden says,
Says
oh, I
no.
don't want to, and now they're under contract and they can't get out.
An addendum?
Yeah, something that said. I mean, have you? We did this once, and I've never done it before because but in the when you, as the seller, so your buyer's buying and they're selling. In the sales contract, they made it contingent upon a successful sale of this home, so the contingency goes backwards. Does that make sense? So if I can't buy this home I'm buying, then you don't get to buy my home. Does that make sense? So you just put that in the additional provisions. We did that one time because we had a client that said, I'm only moving to buy that house. I've been looking at this house for 20 years and I want to buy that house. I'm not moving. And it was this house on acreage in Piedmont, and I want that house. And they got it under contract, and they said, well, if this doesn't close, I'm not selling. So we put a contingency going backwards, saying if we don't successfully close on this one, we don't sell it to you.
Okay, so I've seen this. Have you guys seen this? Here's a house for sale, and this house says, not taking contingent offers.
Oh, yeah?
So my people, same people, they wanted to go look at this house, and I said, well, you're gonna be contingent, so why would we go look at that house? Because they
Yeah.
won't accept your contingent offer. But then they wouldn't accept a contingent offer because the house they wanted to buy said you can't take a contingency.
Yeah.
So
then
they
this person-
control
their-
that sale.
Their buyer pool
Yeah.
is like shrinking.
Shrinks, yeah.
Because this person said no, so this person has to say no to anybody.
And I
that
think
house
and I
for
think
sale.
that's where the seller
It's crazy.
creates so many rules they hurt
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Like just get someone who wants to buy the house,
Yeah.
and then we'll work it out. And if something better comes along, we'll figure out a way to make it work. But
Right.
just yeah, you got to open yourself. That's why when people say I want to sell my house as is, it's like you're gonna hurt yourself. Let's just see what pops up, and we can say no to everything. But why put why put roadblocks on yourself? What were you
On the
going backwards?
contingency officer, did they move forward with inspections and everything as
Yeah,
is?
everyone went through. It closed.
But the buyer with the backward.
Both buyers
They went forward with,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I think they were kind of matching our step I don't remember the details of it exactly, but when we told them ours were scheduled, they scheduled theirs, appraisal. They were kind of
Gotcha.
doing what we did to make sure they don't get out ahead of their skis, and then have $1,000 and then they decide not.
Right.
But they didn't like it because
That
you're
could
spending
be-
money.
Yeah, that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$1,000
So
or whatever for
yeah.
inspections and-
But they wanted the house, and they wanted that house, and everyone wanted the house. We're gonna see what happens, and it worked.
So this is maybe go a little bit a different direction here, but I don't know if this falls into this time or something we're gonna talk about later, but, what do you recommend agents to put so especially new construction? I hear a lot of people, a lot of agents that, oh, well, I don't, my buyer's buying a new construction, it's being built, and they wanna wait until the very last minute to put the house on the market, cause they're afraid of selling it too early to somebody.
Mhm.
But then what happens is they wait too late, the buyer hasn't enough time to see it on the market, they want to price it too high.
Mm-hmm.
And now the new construction, the home builder's like, hey, home's complete, you're supposed to be moving in next week, your house hasn't sold yet, what do you recommend for agents on like, put the house on the market?
Yeah.
Later, or?
So so kind of back to what I said in the beginning. It's all timing. Look and see what. First time you guys meet, or within a week or so of your first meeting, we should have an idea of what we're going to list that house for. Like, we're not going to wait till the day of to figure that out, especially if it's 2, 3, 4 months out. So when we go under contract with that new construction, we should know what we're going to, because you got to know how much down payment you have, your payoff. Like, these are all numbers you need to know. So it shouldn't be a surprise if we're listing it way above market. You should know that up front. And we should recommend, let's list it now, because we're above market and it might take a minute for us to find our buyer. Versus if you look at comps and we're going to list it at 350 and 350 houses sell in 2 weeks, then you wait till you're 3-4 weeks out and list it. So you just got to look at the numbers and plug the pieces of the puzzle in together.
I've always been under the impression, like, for what I would recommend my sellers is list it early, and worst case scenario, if we're 2 months out,
Negotiate.
and just request that we get a 45, 60-day close.
you can.
If we
Yeah.
accept an offer.
Yeah, but that's the same thing with buyers. It's like, I need a house. I need to move. My house is under contract, and I need to. So, yeah, not a bad idea. But rather than just say, let's list it early and see what happens, present them the data. Your house should take 45 days to sell at this price. You want to list it here, so maybe we give ourselves 60, 90 days. So let's list it early, or we list it here. It should sell in 2 weeks. Let's wait so we're not having to sell too fast. And
I asked her, I was like, hey, the contingent offer I had on my home seller, and I was like, hey, will you list that? Where's the house? Let me look it up and see if are you pricing it right or not pricing it right?
Yeah.
And they priced it correctly, and it was sold within 4 days.
Yep, that's exactly right. When you receive a contingency offer, I always go ask what they're going to list it for, and I go comp it myself. Yeah. And that way, when I'm looking at this offer, I can tell my seller they're going to put their house on the market, or it's already on the market at 350. It should be at 300. So heads up, we might be here a little bit. I think we should still take it, but I want to make sure you understand what I'm seeing. So yeah, the number one, again, showing the numbers, the data to your clients, and letting them make the decision. I try to tell all the agents, never make a decision for your clients. It's not your job. Your job's not to tell them what to do. Your job is to give them information so that they can make a decision. You can influence them with information, but it's their decision to make. They're adults. So you want to make sure you give them all the information so they can make a decision. And then, okay, so we're still on not under contract, the failure of buyer to remove termination. So basically what this says is, if nothing happens, if we never get an offer on my house, or the seller never gives a demand, no one makes an offer on their house, if our timelines just expire, the contract's null and void. So it just sits there. So we've had plenty of contingencies just run out of time, right? Normally, what does everyone do when you write a contingency? I do 60 days closing. How far out do you put your contingencies? Just 60. So if we go 60 days and we haven't received an offer on our house and they haven't got an offer on to kick us out either, we just extend it normally. But I've had a client not renew our contingency and said, come back whenever you sell.
I just had that too.
Which doesn't make sense, but I want to buy your house, bro. So.
I had that happen with a listing where the sellers were getting a divorce and couldn't even sell the house till they went through mediation, which would have been when we extended the contingency.
Through it, yeah.
I'm like, you can't even.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, you can't even sell it anyway.
Yeah, you can't even sell it.
People don't make the most rational decisions.
And now they've dropped the price like $15,000 from where we originally were. So.
Yeah. That's what happens. Seen that happen too many times too. First offer is always your best. So what is a stronger, more to lock you into the contract is the presently under contract. If you have your house under contract and you go write a contingent offer and you provide the presently under contract document, it is much shorter because you're under contract. The number one thing is when you have a not under contract, we are not doing inspections. We are not ordering appraisals. We are not starting title, or you can start title because you don't get charged that. But we're not moving forward with any timelines until we sell our house, and then we move forward with all of our timelines. However, in the presently under contract, all the timelines start right away. So that's why I highlighted here. Notwithstanding the above condition, which is house has to sell. Notwithstanding the above condition, buyer shall immediately apply for financing set out in the financing supplement, and buyer shall immediately exercise the right to inspect. So timelines start right away. So when I'm writing a contingent offer not under contract, in my time reference date, I put 3 days after 3 days after condition removed. So that means timelines don't start until 3 days after I remove the condition. Then my timelines begin according to this. Does that make sense? So I put 60 days out, I put 3 days after condition removed for my timelines. Then when we're presently under contract, everything's moving forward. We're inspecting it, we're ordering appraisals, we're doing all that stuff as if we're buying the home. However, I still have the added protection of contract is expressly conditioned on the sale of my home. So, oh, I don't have the right document up. So presently under contract is a lot cleaner. There's not a lot of terms on it. It just says it's conditioned on the sale of the home and timelines are going to start. That's all it basically says. So simple document. But when I move from not under contract to presently under contract, I like to get, so removing the condition, there's two ways. The first way to remove the condition is the buyer to voluntarily remove the condition. So this is the buyer has sold their home or has gotten financing or has cleared cash, or some people write a contingency who can buy it, but they just don't want to. And then when they get a demand, they'll voluntarily remove it. So when the buyer removes the condition, there's two ways to do it. One is, and I didn't put a bullet point here. I ran out of time while I was making the slide. Sorry. Two ways for the buyer to remove the condition is if they remove it from not under contract to presently under contract, meaning they got an offer on their home, an acceptable offer, or the second way is they've obtained some sort of bridge financing, so they can move to the other one. So let me. And here is the removal of buyer. So as Sydney was reading, it's a little better. So the buyer hereby removes the termination condition. Attached to this notice of the removal is, so you either sold it and you're attaching the copy of the contract. You need to see that it is successfully under contract to remove it. So this is where someone got in trouble too, is they sent us this removal but didn't send the contract. And so that did not comply with the document because someone could have just been lying, buying time to, and see you coming over there. And then when we actually received the contract, we saw that it was actually signed. It was not in compliance. So they sent this to buy time, and it did not have the document attached to it like it was supposed to. So when the buyer removes condition, they are either attaching the contract that is allowing them to sell their home, or they are attaching some sort of approval from a financial institution saying they can get accept bridge financing.
Tell them who could sign that too, because that ding.
So we had a long conversation. There's a couple of random, this is another example of OREC documents not really complying with each other. You see buyer's broker, printed name, and buyer's broker signature. So in a Hail Mary attempt to keep the house, they said, well, technically this never, oh, this is the buyer's removal, sorry. So certain documents say buyer, say broker signature, and certain documents say broker or representative signature. The Oklahoma Broker Relationship Act defines the word broker as broker, managing broker, branch broker, sales associate, provisional associate, anyone with a license. So the word broker is anyone with a license as far as the Oklahoma Broker Act, Broker Relationship Act, BRA, the Oklahoma Broker Relationship Act. So they tried to say, well, no, broker didn't sign it, so it's not valid. According to the law, broker is anyone with a license. They're all interchangeable. So that was something, because I didn't know the answer to that either.
Be at the lake and you would
Because I was
sign it.
blacked out at the lake, and I was not in. What's the?
He's
I was not
like,
I was not of sound mind or body.
No.
Uh,
I
yeah.
signed it, and the guy said, oh wait, that doesn't work. He was
Yeah.
after the 7 o'clock deadline. They signed after 7 o'clock. So I said, you're out. He was mad at me. I had signed it, and he said, wait a minute, you're not a broker. I said, well, yeah, I am, and I can sign that. He does not have to be it. And he goes, oh. Well, I was only 6 minutes late. I said, well, 6 minutes late is 6 minutes late. The other people, what if you were the other buyer?
Yeah.
When you wanna
Yep.
have the cutoff is the cutoff, and so he's
Yep.
mad at me.
Remember the words, time is of the
Time is
Yeah.
of the essence. Yeah.
It came into play by 6 minutes.
He said,
Yeah.
can't I have a grace period? I said, that's what the 24 hours was. Not 24 hours and 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So he lost out.
And the agent on the other side, I was friends with, so I was getting. It was Friday night at the lake. I've been drinking, and I'm getting two people come like, guys, I just can't deal with this right now. We got it handled though.
We did.
Does that carry over to your disbursement authorization? Because I know how a company argued me one time that they
We
had,
will, 'cause we'll have more.
they had the broker sign off on it. It just says broker signature. I mean, so I need your broker to verify this and change.
Yeah, I mean, Christina signs ours, and she's not the broker. She is broker associate. Yeah, I mean, I should probably put don't accept agent's signature, but there's a certain level of trust with all of our agents that I have. Maybe I shouldn't, Tim. But yeah, no, I mean, again, the legal definition of broker is every licensee. That document, it really means broker. But we're not gonna correct it. Just try not to steal money from me. So when the buyer is removing the condition, they can either do it with a contract or they can do it with financial document saying they can get bridge loan, or the property transaction is complete. I guess this means they actually sold their home and now they can remove their condition. Because sometimes they'll have a house under contract separate and it's closing, and they'll do it on this if it's clearing up some financing. The other. Let me find it. So here's the fun document we were talking about. All right, so the first way is the buyer's removal of condition. The second way is the seller's condition removal demand. So this is where the kickout clause comes into play. This is when the seller receives another offer. The seller receives another offer and is demanding the condition be removed. And they can remove condition in one of two ways: by selling their house. And I've had a demand being sent to me, and we got it under contract in the 48 hours that I gave myself, the kickout clause. I've done that before, one time, but I've lost more than I've gotten. Or you remove your contingency with some sort of financing. So that's how you do it. So the seller's condition removal demand notification basically says, me, the seller, has received an acceptable offer. You now have until X time and X date to remove your condition. And this is where, again, Lynn put, Friday at 7 p.m. and it didn't come in until 7:14 or 7:06 or whatever it was. It was late, and the other agent wanted the house and got it all done. And so he was upset because he was like, "Oh, you couldn't give me 6 minutes, but you had all day. You had 24 hours." And they knew an offer was coming in all day long at 10 a.m. and they just didn't get it to them.
And from the seller's standpoint, they have a better offer, more money, better
Cash.
cash. So they don't want to give you 6 more minutes.
Yeah.
They want it now.
That's what the
Like
24 hours is
24
for.
hours, right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's brutal, but like you said, if you were the buyer on the other side,
Depends on what
you'd have said, screw grace period. Yeah. So again, time is of the essence. And that's where the other agent was like, you've been 6 minutes late before. I'm like, not when there's someone else with a cash offer. I haven't been. And so, you got to know when to hurry up. So again, the seller's condition removal demand is simple. It basically says I've received an acceptable offer that is not contingent, and it doesn't even have to be for more money. It can be for less money. Like you said, terms are better sometimes. So even though it's less money, it's not contingent, maybe it's cash, whatever. It's an acceptable offer,
But if you
and I'm
think
kicking
about
you
it,
out.
it's better in some way because they accepted it.
They get to close. Yeah, yeah.
They accepted it, so everyone would always ask us, is it a better offer?
Doesn't matter.
The seller says it's better.
Yeah.
He's gonna,
Yeah.
some way it's better to him.
Because we've tried to renegotiate when we got a demand saying I'll come up $5,000 if you don't kick us out. Will that help? And they've said no, and they took the other offer. But I don't know why you wouldn't be able to just renegotiate it at the time of the demand either. Grayson, I'm telling you, we had like 5 in the last week. Grayson had one yesterday. He's personally buying a home, one of our agents, and they had a contingency accepted. He wrote an offer, not contingent. They issued the kickout clause to the other buyer. 24 hours came. It was like 1 o'clock yesterday, and he calls him at 1:01 saying, hey, did they remove their contingency? And he said the seller feels bad, so he's going to give him till 6. And he's like, what the like,
See?
yeah.
Same thing.
And so it's like you can't, like, someone's mad either way.
That's right.
But you had 20, and so he was all upset because he's like, why would he give him, 5 more hours unless that's all they needed? And then 6 o'clock came and he got it. So the seller just wanted to drag him over the coals, I guess, for some reason. So so that's an example of giving someone a little bit of grace. But I guess they just they felt bad, is what the seller said, which is like.
I don't feel like should legally be able to do that. I think that if someone held their feet to the fire.
Well, so that's what he called me. He's like, can they do this? And there is nothing in our contract with that seller that requires them to hold themselves accountable to themselves. Does that make sense? Like if our contract issued this, then we could. But it's the seller issuing this to the other buyer, and the seller can just amend this. I don't know why you would. You'd think you'd want to go with a sure offer. But clearly, they didn't. So there's nothing. I looked it over multiple times in preparation for this class, and because for some reason it's just contingency season.
That is a good way to make the list.
Not working with you anymore. And it was a guy, I never worked with this agent, but I had heard about him, and I'd heard things kind of like this. So, yeah, word gets around. I never even done a deal with him, I've just heard about it. Him or her.
You tell us the name.
Nah, yeah. So the demand, again, yeah, there's nothing to hold them to that. And Grayson was just like sick all day long. Because again, why would you give him a couple more hours unless they said, hey, I just need a few more hours,
Right.
But he did it and they got it, and so it was funny, or not funny to him, but I laughed. So that's so as the seller, when you receive an acceptable offer, you issue a demand, and that's when this is the time period. So this is where the kickout clause. Remember, all it says is no less than 24 hours. So the seller can give you 48 hours. They can give you a week if you want. It just says no less than. But again, you would think a seller would want to move quickly to get their home sold. So the seller can offer as much time as they want. The contingency agreement just says the minimum they have to give you. So that's why I like to put 48 hours, because it gives us 2 days to scramble and get something done. So if I put 48 hours, then they would have to give me a minimum of 48 hours. Does that make sense? All that does is stipulate a minimum. It doesn't stipulate what it was or how long it should
You're
be.
saying in your initial.
In my not under contract contingency addendum,
Okay.
it says no less than 24 hours.
But if you change that to 48 hours, if the seller decides to remove the condition, since that was already in the contract, you're saying that.
It has
at
to
least
comply.
that minimum
Yep,
that you wrote
yep.
normally.
Yep. But to the point we were just making, they can make it 5 days if they want. They give you a kickout clause with 5 days. You have 5 days.
Or as short as 24 hours.
Or as short as 24 hours. It could be 24 hours to a year, right? It doesn't make sense, but it's up to them because they stipulate it. And that's why it's good to maintain some rapport with the agent and try to get as much grace as you can inside of it. And information, any information you have is going to help you in the process too. So I believe that's the last document that I wanted to show you guys. Yeah, kickout clause. Where are my notes here? Yeah. So, questions. I know there's a ton of gray area in this. We went off on a lot of chasing rabbits. Any generic questions about this? As a buyer, you want to make sure the contingency agreements really protect the buyer. It builds in a kick-out clause, a right of refusal of sorts. So as a buyer, you want to make sure they're there. And then you want to make sure you're moving, as you get contracts, you're moving it properly so that your buyer's not exposed by not being able to sell their house. So, and that's where, again, we went back into the argument, or to the discussion of, at the end of the day, if you can't approve for financing, you can get out of the contract. The finance addendum is pretty all-encompassing. If your financing's not approved, you can back out of the contract. So if you don't do this, can you just rely back on that financing or not? So there's discussion there. And again, someone's not going to step in and say you're right, you're wrong. One, it's going to have to go to mediation, which is not a ruling. It's just we're going to get in a room and say, will you split it? And they'll say no, and then we go to court. And it has to go in front of a judge to make a decision. So there is no you're right, I'm wrong, or no one says that except for a judge, and that takes time and money to get in front of a judge. And oftentimes it's not worth the headache. So it's best to just try to work it out as much as possible. Questions on contingencies? Just call me next week, Lynn, when you get your next one. All right, thank you guys. Tonight, 5 o'clock, outside. There's gonna be for this. Oh yes, gosh, Tatum's not here, so everything's. Rip me out a piece of paper, Lynn, pretty please. I know, that's exactly right. What about the knowledge you got? Evan, geez. Put your license numbers up here. This is a CE. Hopefully every time we join together, we're gonna have CE approved. If you're a provisional associate, I was just looking at you, Michaela, you don't need CEs, so you don't have to put your name on it. You don't get credit for them. I mean, you do, but they don't do anything.
Can I steal the floor for 2 seconds?
Steal the floor for 2 seconds, Sydney.
Thank you. Just a reminder, if you are part of Evan Board of Realtors, voting closes next Monday. I am up for one of the board of directors seats, so I would greatly appreciate your vote in that. You should have gotten a link from, I think it's Election Buddy, I think is what it's called, to cast your vote. So there's 2 seats available and 3 potential people running. So I would love your votes. And then beyond that, if you are an Evan Board of Realtors member, ELAW Accelerate applications are open if you're interested in that. I graduated with that course last year. It is a great course. It stands for Evan Leaders of Tomorrow. It's an accelerate track where you really get to hone in on your leadership skills, get to know more about what your board does for you and what you can do for your local board. And just a reminder, even if you are not a member of EBR, you can have dual membership. So you can be with Oakmar and EBR and get all the benefits of both. So, yeah.